Previously in Dark Places.
I seen this. Actually, I thought, maybe it was a person and was walking. And I thought, what in the world is somebody doing out this time of morning? And, in it pouring snow and walking. Then, as it come on down more in front of the store, I seen how big it was, how tall.
Howdy. Welcome to In Dark Places, episode 16. Today we're talking about one of my all-time favorite subjects, time travel. I'm not real sure when I actually got into time travel. I think the first time travel movie I saw was probably the Philadelphia Experiment, which we will be talking about today in greater detail. Big fan of the Back to the Future movies, anything to do with time travel. If you've got a story to tell and you'd like to be a guest on our show, send an email to indarkplacespod@hotmail.com. Now let's take a look at some news items this week.
Date April 11th, 2021. Headline says, something out of the X-Files. Hundreds of sheep assemble in a mysterious flock circle in a UK field. It says a huge flock of sheep has caused a stir after being spotted standing in a bizarre centric circle in the field in East Sussex, UK. Christopher Hogue, the man who spotted the never-seen-before phenomenon while being out on his bike in Rottingdean, said he initially thought that it was a spaceship. Hogue shared photos of the unusual spectacle on Facebook, following which many users said it actually looked like an alien ship. And it really, if you look at it, there's pictures, it really does. They're in a perfect circle, and it's like rings of a circle. It's not just all bunched into a circle. There's like an outer ring, then a little closer to another ring, and then a little closer another ring. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like maybe 5 rings of sheep in a perfect circle.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it goes on to say, I was on my daily cycle when I came over the hill and saw this magnificent circle. At that point, I was about a half a mile away, which made me think whatever it was huge. It was saucer shaped like an alien ship, Hogue was quoted saying. It was beautiful, but also in 2021, a bit too weird for comfort. I cycled closer and closer and then realized that the circle was sheep. The 47-year-old, who is a lecturer at Royal Holloway University in London, says he goes past the sheep every day, and they are usually very noisy. Let's see, Hogue showed his photos he had taken to his wife and son, who were both shocked by the flock circle. After he shared the photos on Facebook, several users tried to figure out what caused such a rare sight. There was lots of debate whether it was a crop or a flock circle, or if the sheep were being summoned by a strange force. Others thought they might be pranking the farmer. We all agreed it was a mystery that warranted a recall of Mulder and Scully. So, yeah, I mean, if you, where is this at? It's timesnownews.com. And you can look at the pictures, but it's pretty amazing. They're in a perfect circle. Like I said, rings of circles.
Makes you wonder if they were being summoned, like I said. It's weird.
Well, the only other thing I could think maybe the phenomenon that caused this would be maybe the feed. If they got maybe a special feed or some kind of feed, because sheep usually just eat about anything. They eat grass, hay, whatever. But maybe they've put, I don't know if there's any such thing as sheep feed. I've never messed with sheep, but if they've put them in rings of circles like that just for attention or just for the experience of it. But if not, I mean, it's a pretty cool picture that all these sheep in rings of circles.
Pretty creepy. Well, the geniuses at the World Economic Forum have started a new simulation You'll recall their last simulation, Event 201, which brought the world to its knees for the coronavirus. Their new simulation will teach us what could happen during a mass cyber attack, which would wreak havoc on the world's food supply. The whole deal with these satanic people like Bill Gates is they have to say what they're going to do. It's like a little game for them. Their plans are hidden in plain sight. Cyber Polygon. Cyber Polygon is a unique cybersecurity event that combines the world's largest technical training exercise for corporate teams and an online conference featuring senior officials from international organizations and leading corporations. The 2021 conference discusses the key risks of digitalization and best practice for secure development of digital ecosystems. The 2021 technical exercise builds and tests the skills needed to protect our industries, centering on a targeted supply chain attack. Every year, the training brings together global businesses and government agencies to collaborate on technical exercises. The live stream draws in millions of spectators from across the world. Klaus Schwab, Mr. Illuminati himself, says that the lack of cybersecurity has become a clear and immediate danger to our society. So don't be surprised if we're not having a worldwide food shortage by this time next month. Just makes you wonder what this sick dude has in mind this time. So now let's jump into some time travel, Philadelphia Experiment, Montauk Project. We talk a lot about the late great Art Bell here on the show, and Art was a big fan of time travel, as I am. I've got a buddy who had a bit of an experience with time travel. I don't know if it was like some kind of a portal or some kind of rift in the time-space continuum or something, but I emailed his story to Art Bell one time, I think back in 2014, and Art never did reply, of course, but I figured he'd get a good kick out of it since he was a fan of time travel.
Right.
So I'll just read the story as it was when I sent it to Art. And this is a little disclaimer. The story you're about to hear is 100% true. I am certain of it. My buddy is a Christian. He doesn't make up stories like this. He's not looking for attention, which is why I've got to change his name. It's the only thing of the story that will be different. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. But the story is 100% true. He used to tell me the story over and over again. I've heard it 10 times probably. So I pretty well had it memorized at the time that I sent it to Art Bell. And here is that story that I sent Art Bell. So for protecting my friend's identity, we're going to call him Bob in this story. First, I'll give you a little background information on my friend Bob. Bob's parents had 4 children, 3 boys and a girl. He was the third born. His parents divorced when he was young. As a result of the divorce, his father became a drunken hermit. He'd never leave the house. He rarely left his bed. He just kept to himself, unconscious with alcohol for many years. Bob and his siblings all lived with his mother. His oldest brother died when he was just 18 years old. He was climbing around on a truck and fell off and broke his neck. He died a couple of days later. So now I'll get on with the story. When Bob's oldest brother, Bill, was about 16, he wandered off to a hilltop alone one day, and he was gone for a couple of hours. Bob, who was 12 years old at the time, was in his yard playing with his other brother, Ed, who was about 14 at the time. They were playing, and then suddenly, Bill came running down from the hill screaming and crying to the top of his lungs. He dropped down to his knees in front of their house, still crying. Bob and Ed asked what was wrong with him, but he wouldn't talk for a long time. He just kept crying. Finally, after several minutes, Bill started talking to his younger brothers. He said, "Man, Ed just told me some really bad things. I'm going to die." Ed was in the yard with Bob the whole time, and Bob asked, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "I'm going to break my neck when I'm 18, and I'm going to die." And Bob said, "Why do you think that?" Bill said, "I'm going to fall off a truck, and I'm going to break my neck, and I'm going to die." They thought he was crazy. And then Bill went on to tell them a lot of other things that was going to happen to their family. He said, "Dad is going to get better, and you're going to outgrow everyone in the family," he told Bob, because Bob was the smallest little runt kid at the time. He told him, "You're going to outgrow everybody in the family." and everyone's going to have to look up to you one day. Bill didn't forget about what happened to him that day on the hilltop. He obsessed about it. He'd talk about it all the time. He constantly talked about how he was going to die when he turned 18. On his 17th birthday, he said, "I've got one more year to go." And everyone would say, "Don't talk like that. You're not going to die." And when he turned 18, he still talked about it. "I don't have much longer to go now," he said. A couple weeks before his 19th birthday, Ed said, "See, we told you so. You didn't die. You're about to turn 19 now. Nothing's going to happen to you." But within the next day or so, Bill was playing around on a truck near their house. He was showing off in front of his two little brothers. He hung upside down from a bar on top of the truck. He slipped off the bar and fell to the ground and landed right on top of his head. He broke his neck and he died in the hospital a couple of days later. Over the next few years, all the things that Bill told his brothers started coming true too. Their dad came out of the house for the first time in years and he quit drinking. He eventually started going to church and he turned his life completely around. Bob was always the scrawny little brother and everyone thought he'd always be small, but he hit a growth spurt when he turned 16. He grew to be 6 feet 2 inches, taller than anyone else in the family. Bob said a lot of other things came true too, but that's all that pertains to this particular story. Bob's brother Ed called him one day in 2012 and told him about a strange experience he had. Ed said, "I don't know how to explain this. I don't think it was a dream because it felt so real, but I saw Bill last night." And Bob asked, "What do you mean you saw Bill?" Ed said, "I was walking around up on top of a mountain, looking at all the trees and things, and I saw Bill up there. I went over and started talking to him. I don't know why, but I just started telling him about things that were going to happen. I begged him not to climb on that truck because he was going to fall off and break his neck and die." So that was always a super fascinating story.
No kidding. That's like having ESPN or something.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a wild story. And the Philadelphia experiment was in 1943. They were trying to make the USS Eldridge invisible to radar during the Cold War, and for some reason they made it invisible, like actually to like human eyes and stuff. They just completely made it invisible, and they thought that it was still there in the ocean, but it had actually time traveled. It was like a unforeseen side effect, they say.
It almost like it dematerialized and rematerialized. And when it rematerialized, the reports of some of the crew were stuck in the walls. It almost looks like when Han Solo got cryogenically frozen or whatever that was. And
yeah, had that type of look.
Yeah, like they were in the walls, and I mean, you could make out, hands and feet and facial expressions. I've never seen pictures, but I've seen pictures of what they were supposed to pictures look like.
Some of the key players that brought the Philadelphia experiment out to the light of day were Duncan Cameron, Al Bielek, and Preston Nichols. Duncan and Al were actually supposedly brothers, and they got on the USS Eldridge in 1943. They were both about 20 years old at the time, and I can't remember what Al Bielek's other name was. Duncan Cameron was teleported to 1983 with the USS Eldridge, and I guess he just decided to stay there, and he kind of made a whole new life for himself in 1983 from 1943. And he was heavily brainwashed. He was subjected to a lot of experiments at the Montauk project. He had a lot of telekinetic abilities, and he was like psychic and all kinds of cool stuff. So he worked out good for the Montauk project. But Al Bielek, he went on to serve hundreds of missions with the Philadelphia experiment. And he went back to 1943. He saw a lot of his shipmates all stuck in the walls and stuff like that. And he actually went on to do a lot of other time travel experiments for the government with without any actual knowledge, he was brainwashed with the MK Ultra stuff, and he ended up in the future at some point. I think it was like 2135 or something. He went to the future, and I guess he spent a pretty good lot of time there, like 7 or 9 years or something. I can't remember exactly, but he didn't have any kind of memory of who he actually was. He was just doing as he was told. At some point, he remembered that he was Duncan Cameron's brother. I don't really remember how that all came about.
I guess Montauk Island or Montauk has ties to this. What is that Stranger Things show that's on Netflix? I guess is what it's on.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't watch Netflix or anything like that. But it says 1943 U.S. military supposedly conducted secret experiments in the naval shipyard in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on a quest to discover a way to foil Nazi radar so that they could safely transport supplies to the Allies in Europe. The Navy has never admitted to these tests taking place, but according to the conspiracy theorists as far back as 1955, it not only succeeded in uncovering how to make its ships invisible to radar, but accidentally managed to cause a battleship to travel to another time, into a different dimension. The ship went somewhere, and after the military learned that the negative effects of the exposure to their version of the upside down had on the crew, it shut the project down. Hollywood got its hands on the story before Stranger Things. 1984 movie, The Philadelphia Experiment, adapted from a book about the conspiracy, follows two sailors serving on the USS Eldridge during World War II. Just like in history, the experiment crew finds itself in the ship blinked 40 years forward in time. Once in the future, they realize that the Philadelphia experiments have been revived in the 80s, but as a way for the government to make an ICBM shield, thanks to the Cold War. The two experiments connected through time wormholes, and generators on the Eldridge kept the porthole open as it began to suck in matter from 1984. The Philadelphia experiment underwhelmed at the box office, but for a select few, the movie triggered a new and old life.
That was supposedly where Preston Nichols started getting his memory back on when the Philadelphia movie came out in 1984. Preston Nichols, the guy that wrote this Montauk book that I've got, he was real big into studying radio frequencies and ham radio and stuff.
Okay.
Like pretty much all his life. And he was interested in ghost hunting and stuff. He wanted to develop a radio to communicate with the other side. And he kept playing with different frequencies and antennas and stuff. And you heard about this old abandoned military base on Montauk Island, had a huge antenna. And he was really interested in getting a hold of that antenna so he could do his research. So he went out to Montauk with this guy that he met about the antenna. He was going to see about trying to get it like from some kind of government surplus place. And when he got to the base, there was a guy there that recognized him, and he had never seen him before in his life, as far as he knew of. But he had a previous life that he didn't even know about. So he kept going back to Montauk over the next few weeks, trying to get his hands on any kind of abandoned material and stuff there. And he started hearing stories about like weird weather phenomena and stuff. Like there was a blizzard in August, and hurricane force winds while it was snowing. It was crazy. It was some of their experiments that they had conducted there with the radio frequencies. So in November of 1984, he was at his lab doing his research and stuff. And Duncan Cameron just kind of came and knocked on his door. He had a piece of audio equipment that he thought that could be useful for Preston. I guess he had found out through the grapevine that he was interested in stuff. So he brought the audio equipment in and gave it to Preston Nichols. So he ended up going to Montauk Island with Duncan Cameron. He took Duncan with him one day. And Duncan started pointing out all these different facilities, what each building was for, and what kind of experiments happened there, and stuff like that. Real Wild
here's
story.
here's a little thing. It says it actually talks about Preston Nichols. Says he writes of his time working at Camp Hero, which is on Montauk Island, on the secret experiments. Specifically during the 1970s, he claimed he worked on something called the Montauk chair, a piece of furniture that used electromagnets to amplify psychic powers. Duncan Cameron, who wrote The Walking Soul, the child version, born in 1963, was found to have psychic powers and became the focus of the Montauk chair experiments. Apparently, Duncan could manifest objects by thinking about them while in the Montauk chair. One of the experiments Nichols described sounds a lot like experiment being performed on 11 before she opens up the porthole upside down. I don't have any idea what that means. Let's see. The first experiment was called the Seeing Eye. With a lock of person's hair or the appropriate object in hand, Duncan could concentrate on the person and be able to see if he or she was seeing through their eyes, hearing through their ears, and feeling through their body. He could actually see through other people anywhere on the planet. And that's not the first time I've heard of that. Oh man, what is that guy's name? Ed Dames.
Oh yeah.
Would talk about these experiments. If I remember right, I mean, I don't want to tell the wrong story, but I think he could actually do the same thing, and the government hired him to train people to do this very thing, where he could remote view, but he was doing it for the government. I just barely remember that. For some reason, that just kind of popped out of my memory banks about Ed Dames. Duncan
Cameron, they had been doing experiments on the kids and stuff. They'd been kidnapping teenagers like from 11 to 14. Just the government kidnapped them and doing those experiments on them at Montauk and trying to, like Ed Dames, the seeing whatever. I can't remember what he called it now, the projectile seeing or astral travel and stuff.
Yeah.
They had been experimenting on kids and they couldn't really get any kind of good results. But then Duncan Cameron came in and they could put him in that chair and he could manifest objects and everything like that. Like the other kids couldn't do anything, but he was like exceptionally good at it or something. It's crazy.
Well, see, I'm sitting here reading. Says where I guess Duncan manifested this monster. So it says Nichols kept the Duncan of 1943 away from the 1963 version, but quickly realized that time travel was way too complex and far too dangerous to be messing around with, torturing children. I guess that was okay. He and three colleagues hatched a plan to use Duncan to shut down the project. From the Montauk Project Experiments in Time, he said, we finally decided we had enough of the whole experiment. The contingency program was activated by someone approaching Duncan while he was in the chair and simply whispering, the time is now. At this moment, he let loose a monster from his subconscious, and the transmitter actually portrayed a hairy monster. It was big, hairy, hungry, and nasty, he said, but it didn't appear underground in the null point. It showed up somewhere on the base. It would eat anything it could. It smashed everything in sight. Several different people saw it, but almost everyone described the beast differently. Nichols had to smash all of the equipment that powered the Montauk chair before the beast disappeared back into nothingness. That incident, plus a successful time anchor that was built between August 12, 1943 and August 12, 1983, ensured that the project would be shuttered. Employees were then brainwashed, and in 1984, the lower levels of the base were filled with cement.
Yeah, supposedly he had got tired of all the government's experiments on him and stuff, and so he kind of unleashed the beast on him. So I guess it came in and tore up Jack there at the base. They had a picture of it. I don't know.
Like I said, I don't know hardly anything about this Stranger Things thing. Is this pretty much based on Montauk?
Yeah. Yeah, they say it's a pretty fair representation of what actually went on there.
No kidding. You would think that all those people associated with that would be found in a car wreck or
Yeah, it's kind of odd, ain't it?
be visited by the man in black or something.
Seems like one of those where they're kind of get the public kind of conditioned for something before they actually do it. Along those lines, MK Ultra junk.
Yeah, for sure. You know, there was so many experiments that it was done up there. There was where they were trying to, I don't know if they were doing it through DNA or how they were doing it, but they were actually putting like two animals together. Like you may have a dog and a pig. You know, it'd be like a dog's body and a pig's head. You know, that kind of crazy experiment stuff, like crazy Nazi stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if you remember, I can't remember what year it was, but it hasn't been that long ago, I don't think, where they found the Montauk monster washed up on shore. And nobody could determine what that was.
That's kind of funny, too, on that. Let's see, it was on July 23rd, 2008, when that appeared on the beach. The thing with their time tunnel from the Philadelphia experiment, they say that the planet has 20-year biorhythms, and that is when time travel is supposedly opened up there at Montauk every 20 years. And for some reason, every 40 years it's stronger. It opens like every 20 years, but every 40 years it's like really strong, like when Duncan had the beast that looked like Bigfoot. It came out in 1983. So for some reason that made them like really strong for 40-year intervals. So the next time the Philadelphia experiment was on August 12th, 1943. So every 20 years, like August 12th, 1963, it opened again. And August 12th, 1983, and that's when the Montauk thing went down with the beast and everything. So the next time it came, it was in 2003. The next time will be 2023, August 12th, 2023.
Now, will that be on the 40-year?
Yeah, that'll be the next big opening of the portal.
Supposedly stronger and I guess bigger.
I'm planning a little road trip going there, driving 22 hours or something to go to Montauk so I can see what happens.
You know what? In my travels throughout the years, I was actually out close to that and never even really realized I was close to it, you know? But I guess that Montauk monster washed up on, was it the Jersey shore or was it the New York shore?
When they first did the Philadelphia experiment, it was off the coast of Pennsylvania there.
Right.
And whenever it appeared in 1983, it had somehow ended up in Virginia. That was kind of weird that it went down south some. It was
I mean the Montauk monster when it washed ashore, was it on the Jersey shore?
Yeah.
Been so long since I've really looked into anything Montauk, but I was pretty sure it washed up on the Jersey shore. It was found by some kids, I think.
Yeah.
It's a pretty odd looking creature. If anybody can all you got to do is Google Montauk monster, and it's like a hairless, opaque, pinkish, really white skinned, maybe, I mean, it don't look like a seal. It looks like more like I really can't describe what it looks like. It's really odd looking.
It's got arms and legs and junk. It's crazy. That they found that on July 23rd, 2008. So that makes me wonder, did it appear at the base in 2003 when the portal opened again? And then it kind of just hung out there for 5 years.
I'd say, was it part of the experiments? And it just kind of hung out there until it died, you know?
Yeah.
Close to it. And it just, the tide, Montauk's just off the coast of New York. So it could have got caught, brought down somehow into the Jersey shore there. I don't know. It's one of them things where you kind of almost have to put UFOs sightings in with Area 51. It's one of them things that it probably happened, but they'll never admit that it happened.
the Montauk monster that Duncan Cameron projected with his mind was this guy, kind of like a Bigfoot creature.
Oh, that looks almost like a dogman type looking creature.
Yeah, it does, don't it? Has like the pointed ears and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Okay, hang on. Look at that picture. Now look over to the very next. Go to your left.
yeah,
And look at the pointy ears.
well, that's wild, ain't it?
I mean, I'm not saying that's it. I'm just saying, the picture on the right is kind of fuzzy and hard to really make out. But if you look, that creature there that's laying dead, the supposed Montauk monster, has pointy ears as well. But it doesn't look like it's nowhere near the size of the creature that's on the other side.
Preston Nichols says in the book that building there beside of the Bigfoot thing was 11 feet tall.
Oh yeah, that creature it washed up was doesn't look nowhere near that size.
I wonder, maybe that's some kind of offspring or something.
Well,
maybe that's a juvenile one. It was in the ocean for a while and lost its hair and junk.
Well, see, that's not really even the picture that that's not the monster. I mean, I've seen pictures of that one, but the one I was looking or was talking about looks different than that.
Are you familiar with Andrew Bisagio, the guy that he was supposedly a part of the Montauk Project, and he went to Mars with Barack Obama?
No, that is the first time hearing any of that.
Yeah, that's a wild story. He was a part of that Montauk Project, and supposedly they used that time tunnel and zapped him and a bunch of other guys to Mars, and Barack Obama was like his roommate or something while they were there. And he got debriefed telling that he was going to be the president one day and stuff. And then Andrew Bisagio was with him and you're going to be president too. So he had a thing going back around 2014 that he's destined to be the president in 2016, but it didn't work out for him. So it makes you wonder, maybe he might have been exaggerating.
Wow. That's the creature I was talking about.
Yeah, it's the new Montauk monster. It's totally different. That's wild.
There's several different pictures of it.
I didn't hear about this one.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. It doesn't really look like a seal. You don't really, I mean, what could that be? I mean, if you look at its face, it doesn't really look much like a seal, but so I don't really know. I mean, and then you have this creature here. That doesn't really look like a dog or anything to me.
That's wild.
So if anybody's got any idea or clue or anything, I'm open for suggestions. That was my take on it. That was the one I was talking about.
Yeah, I'd never seen that one. That's wild.
If you think if they were really doing that kind of experiments on Montauk Island, if you think of the experiments that they were doing during the Nazis, it sounds very similar to me. Experimenting on young kids, experimenting with animals, trying to do time travel. Hitler was obsessed with time travel.
That Nazi Bale, a lot of people think that was what happened there at Kecksburg, Stan Gordon's neck of the woods. That Nazi Bale had.
That's right. Yeah,
kind of regenerated.
It was acorn shaped and it looked like a bell. Really, if you look at the pictures, of what people said they saw, it does look like a bell or almost like just a big acorn, really. And I think he even we brought that up to him, and I don't think he was thinking in that department, but I mean, it makes just as good a sense as anything. I mean,
yeah.
Short of it having USSR on it,
That would explain the weird markings and stuff on it. Maybe it was wrote in German or something, and the people that saw it just couldn't read it.
Well, that would also explain why the government cleaned it up so quick and got it out of there.
Yeah. Al Bielek died on October 13th, 2011. And Preston Nichols died on October 5th, 2018. Duncan Cameron is still alive, but he's never been very vocal on the Philadelphia experiment. Al Bielek said he spent quite a number of years in the future, so it's possible that he is out there somewhere, a younger version of him. So if you're out there, Al, send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. indarkplacespod@hotmail.com. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show, and God bless you. See you next week.